My grandfather sent my husband $250,000 a month for 3 years to make sure I was taken care of. I was mopping office floors at midnight, 6 months pregnant, crying over the electric bill. The money was real, I just wasn't the one spending it. The hearing lasted 4 hours. Patricia presented the wire transfer records first. 3 years of them, printed and bound. Each page tabbed with color-coded markers in a system so precise, it felt almost architectural. She walked Judge Okafor through the routing pattern the way you'd explain something obvious to someone patient. Not condescending, just methodical. Here's where the money entered. Here is where it went within 72 hours. Here is the account it went to. Here is whose name is on that account. Here is the offshore component. Here is the echo transcript. Gerald Hastings objected 4 times. Judge Okafor overruled him 4 times, each time with the particular efficiency of someone who has heard every version of a particular argument and found none of them more persuasive than the last. Mark sat at the table in a suit I now recognized. Navy blue, Brioni, purchased the same month I declined the hospital upgrade. He kept his hands folded and his face arranged into something that was trying very hard to look like a wronged man, and kept sliding into something else when he thought no one was watching. I was watching. Grandpa sat 2 rows behind me. I could feel him the way you feel weather. Steady, low pressure, present. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. When Patricia played the echo transcript through the courtroom speakers, Mark's voice filling that wood-paneled room, she'll never find out. The woman sitting to my left, a stranger, made a small involuntary sound, like something had landed on her. I felt nothing, which I understood by then was not numbness. It was just the other side of knowing. Judge Okafor granted the protective order. She also made 3 comments from the bench that Patricia later told me were unusual, that judges at this stage typically reserve language, and that Diane Okafor choosing not to was, in her professional opinion, intentional. The first was that the financial record in this case was, and I am quoting here, among the most methodically concealed she had seen in 11 years on this bench. The second was that the existence of the offshore account had been referred to the appropriate federal authority, and that she expected counsel to govern themselves accordingly. The third was directed, without looking up from her notes, toward the defense table. Mr. Calloway, she said, we want to retain separate counsel for the federal matter. His current attorney practices civil law. Gerald Hastings' expression did not change. Mark's did. Nora was 3 weeks old when the Business Chronicle ran David Park's first piece. I read it at Grandpa's kitchen table at 6 a.m. while she slept on my chest. Her weight, the particular dense warmth of someone new to existing, someone who has not yet learned that the world requires bracing for. David Park was a careful writer. He didn't editorialize. He didn't need to. He had the wire records, the court filing, the charity dinner account sourced from 4 attendees, and a comment from Patricia that contained exactly 32 words and managed to be both completely factual and absolutely devastating. My phone ran warm for 2 days. People I knew, people I didn't, journalists, a producer from a news program in Atlanta who left a voicemail I didn't return, a woman from my old job who said she'd known something was wrong and was sorry she hadn't said it, a college friend I hadn't spoken to in 4 years who texted 3 words, I am sorry. Mark's company released a statement calling the coverage misleading and promising a full response. The full response never came. His second largest investor withdrew before the second article ran. The third article ran on a Tuesday. By Thursday, 2 of Mark's partners had quietly begun the process of dissolving their shared LLC. Patricia received confirmation of this from a source she declined to identify, but described only as having a long memory and a large address book. I didn't feel triumphant. I want to be honest about that because triumph is what the story seems to want from me here, and I understand why. The math is clean, the wrong was named, the evidence was ironclad. The people who needed to be held responsible were in the process of being held responsible with a thoroughness that felt almost architectural. But I was also 3 weeks postpartum, sitting in my grandfather's kitchen, wearing the same robe I'd been wearing since Tuesday, trying to figure out how to nurse a human person I was entirely responsible for, while simultaneously understanding that the last 3 years of my life had been a controlled demolition I hadn't known I was standing in. Triumph felt like the wrong shape for that. What I felt was more like the specific tiredness of someone who has been carrying something very heavy for a very long time and has just been allowed to put it down. Not joy, not relief exactly, just the strange, unfamiliar sensation of my own arms at my sides. Grandpa knocked on my bedroom door at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, 6 weeks after the hospital. He had 2 cups of tea and the particular expression he wore when he decided to say something he'd been turning over for a while. He sat in the chair by the window, the one that had always been there, the one I draped my school clothes over as a teenager, and handed me one of the cups and looked at Nora in the bassinet between us for a long moment. I should have checked, he said. Not the account. I checked that. I should have checked on you. Grandpa, I assumed the money meant you were fine. He turned the cup in his hands. I've always thought of money as a problem that could be solved by money. It didn't occur to me that the money could be the problem. I didn't tell you, I said. That was my choice. You were ashamed. His voice was careful. I know what that looks like. I've worn it myself a time or 2. I looked at him. He was 74 years old. The same watch, the same posture, the chin that had trembled once in a hospital room, and not before or since. I should have asked more questions, he said. When he came into your life and things got arranged the way they did, I noticed things. I told myself it wasn't my place. He was quiet for a moment. It was my place. You're my family. There isn't anything that isn't my place where you're concerned." Nora made a small sound in the bassinet, and we both looked at her. 8 pounds of total certainty. "She looks like your mother," he said. It wasn't the first time he'd said it, but his voice had a different texture tonight, like he'd been saving it for when he could get it out whole. "I know," I said. We sat there for a while, the 3 of us, in a room I'd grown up in, drinking tea that went cold, and not needing to say anything else. Mark's federal matter is ongoing. I'm not at liberty to discuss the specifics, which is how Patricia phrased it, and I've adopted her phrasing because it has the same clean finality as a door that locks from the inside. The civil case settled in month 4. The terms are confidential. What I can tell you is that Nora will be attended to, that her future has a floor under it that cannot be removed. That Patricia reviewed every clause with the expression of someone ensuring a thing is done completely or not at all, and that I trust her judgment the way I've learned to trust the specific competence of people who have made accuracy their entire character. Vivian did not call again after that first morning. Her silence has the quality of someone who has done the math and does not like the result. I filed for divorce on a Tuesday. It was raining. I had Nora in the carrier against my chest, and Patricia beside me, and my grandfather's town car idling at the curb, and I walked up the steps of the Chatham County Courthouse in borrowed rain boots, because mine had worn through in the 3rd trimester, and I hadn't replaced them yet. That detail matters to me. The rain boots. I've bought new ones since. Nora is 4 months old now. She has opinions about ceiling fans and a very specific feeling about being put down before she's ready, which she communicates with the full force of her considerable personality. She smells like something I don't have a word for. Something that rearranges your priorities without asking permission. I'm still in Grandpa's house. That's temporary, or it's not. We haven't decided. He set up a nursery in the room next to mine, with the focused efficiency of a man who doesn't do things halfway. And twice, I've come downstairs to find him standing at the bassinet at 2 a.m., just looking at her, his hands at his sides, wearing the expression of someone who has been given something he didn't know he was still able to want. I'm working again, not the cleaning job, something else. Something that uses the degree I'd put away when the finances got tight. And Mark said my income barely covered my work costs anyway, which I now understand was a calculation he'd made specifically so that I would believe it. I think about the version of myself who believed it. I don't think about her with contempt. She was doing the best accounting she could with the information she'd been allowed to have. Shame is a room with no windows. You can't see what you can't see. But I know what I know now, and I have a daughter who is 4 months old, and a grandfather who knocked on my door with 2 cups of tea, and an attorney with a Yale degree who has never lost a civil fraud case, and an 81-year-old woman named Constance Beaumont who apparently is still sending emails on my behalf to people I've never met, and new rain boots, and Nora's fingers around mine. That's the shape of it. That's where I am. I think that's enough to build from.